The Iron Dominion This is a condensed reconstruction of the wartime diary of German Oberleutnant Martin Steglich, drawn from his own entries covering the period from the opening of the campaign in the east through the defensive fighting around Demyansk and the Valdai region. The text retains the sequence of events, losses, marches, awards, and observations as recorded. Fillers, repeated asides, and non-essential commentary have been removed. The account runs from June 1941 into late 1942. June 20th, 1941, before noon the regiment commander, Lieutenant Colonel Kegler, issued the order. Hard days and hours ahead. Trim sails to the wind. Keep ears open. Move forward. Faith in God and the conviction of inner superiority. June 21. Platoon commanders instructed on the border the previous night. Returned at 1:0 a.m. Champaign with the platoon commanders. Training with the company for special battle orders. The Frere's order, read to the company. Movement the next morning from Finland to the Black Sea. 5th Company on the division's main attack line. No one at home knows. By the time they learn of it, the company will already be hours into battle on Russian ground. June 22, about 10 p.m. After a 27-kilometer advance by compass, the company is entrenched. Fierce fighting against an enemy that fired from front, flank, and rear. 3 non-commissioned officers and 3 soldiers wounded. 2 non-commissioned officers seriously wounded, 1 with a blind lung wound. 1 with a shattered forearm. Non-commissioned Officer Peters recommended for promotion to Feldwebel and informed of the promotion while on a stretcher. Attack began at 3:05 a.m. Russian positions incompletely occupied. No Russian aircraft seen. Resistance expected only beyond the 1939 border. Field kitchens still awaited. June 23. Left Geisty at 4:15 a.m. Bad roads. Reached Domakovo. Many men out of action with foot injuries. Blisters and saddle sores from riding. June 24. Night movement toward Kovno. Chaotic shooting. Isolated soldiers and partisans opened fire on the column and are answered. Afternoon rest at Petkelix. By 5 p.m. Kovno reported captured. Area full of separated Bolshevik groups. Overnight in Ilgakemis. Over 60 kilometers covered since the previous day. June 25. Awakened at 4:45 a.m. by messenger Russians. A group of 50-60 men tried to break through. Battle lasted more than 2 hours. 48 killed, 9 captured, including 5 officers and 1 commissar. 8 machine guns taken. Reichelt killed. Feldwebel Neumann wounded in the chest. Gefreiter Zimmermann hit by 3 bullets in the leg and 1 tangential to the head. Ginter Wiebelitz killed instantly by an anti-tank grenade while rushing an enemy position. Letter written to Reichelt's mother. Position at Podrok village. Wells and water pipes in Kovno reported poisoned. Company Commander Engler wounded. Erich Belty expected to take over that company. June 26. Reached the fortress of Kovno on glacis snow. 68. Crossed the Niemen by pontoon bridge between forts 4 and 5. Midday rest in the eastern part of Kovno. 3 Red divisions reported surrounded in a large wooded area ahead. Major Engel brought news. Leningrad, Dinneburg, Kharkov, and Vilna occupied. Northern Russian group completely surrounded. 2,500 aircraft and 1,000 tanks destroyed. Later notes record that much of this was exaggerated. March through Kovno orderly, company singing. Major Haberhauer and Gefreiter Strausch awarded the Iron Cross. Night march skirmishes. Single Russian soldiers brave, but overall impression of units with feet of clay. Mostly Asian troops encountered so far. Erich Belty took command of the 7th Company. June 27. Efficient organization in the morning. Night attack. Beaten back. Several Reds killed. Defenses ordered. Villages empty. Piles of corpses and wounded Lithuanians. Soldiers merciless against ambushers. Scorching heat, wooded terrain, weapons carried. Round defense in dense forest. Mosquitoes severe, no water for washing. June 29. Difficult day with no rest. Regiment in the center of the attacking division. Crossed the Lomiana rapidly. Roads bad. Crossed the Vilia at Gegagine on Russian pontoons. Abandoned and burned tanks, heavy motorized artillery, and tractors. Dead bodies everywhere. Bridgehead guarded. Lost in forest at night. Russian maps useless. Reached designated location only at midnight. Ordered forward at 4 a.m. to the Irvinta, 18 kilometers. Light rain after days of heat and dust. Guard set east and southeast. First wash and shave in 3 days. A Russian pretending to be dead shot a soldier from the 1st Battalion at point-blank range. Expectation of the first Wehrmacht High Command report on the campaign. June 30. Halt broken by hurried march. Advanced about 17 kilometers. Abandoned weapons and equipment only. Company at the head of the battalion. Night camp in Eolii. Quiet night, except for a short thunderstorm. Next march, about 40 kilometers northeast, probably toward Dinneburg. July 1. Covered 36 kilometers the previous day. Crossing of a river delayed the advance. Camped in Piekunice. Uniforms and feet in poor condition. Lithuanian teacher reported fleeing unarmed Russian soldiers, speaking of returning home to make a revolution. July 2. Almost 30-kilometer march in heat. 3-hour afternoon halt. Roads worse than before. Night in Maekai on dry straw. Severe kidney pain in the morning. Only 6 kilometers covered by 4 p.m. Because of rain turning roads into knee-deep mud. Soldiers dragged 4 horse wagons free. July 3. Reached destination at 1:30 a.m. Lake Country. People poor, made poorer under Bolshevik rule. Wagons pulled by tractor up the last hill. Oberleutnant Engler returned with muscle injury only. Erich Belty returned to the command personnel reserve. July 4. Halt in Benyuni. Night at Susada in a dirty yard with straw. Tents arranged in peacetime quadrangle. Meeting at the commander's, then short company instruction. March began at 8 a.m. 20 kilometers already covered, another 20 remaining. Rest day expected after the Daugava. July 5. Morning march. 4 Iron Crosses second class awarded to the company the previous afternoon. Night in Drisviati in a large shed. Company bathed naked in the lake 20 meters behind. Forced hurried march of 40 kilometers after liaison motorcycle accident delayed the order. Cool, cloudy weather. July 6. Approaching the Daugava. Night in Borony. Quarters misdirected by a quartermaster. Slept undressed in a clean bed by local standards, but rest was poor. Letters written to families of the wounded by automobile light. Sunday march began at 6:25 a.m. battalion at the head of the regimental column. Daugava to be crossed, enemy already beaten there. July 7. Stopped in forest near Kuglani. Crossed the Daugava near Kraslava the previous afternoon. Then another 10 kilometers. Thunderstorm on the way. Straw for the night. Kidney pain continuing. March of 15 kilometers to replace the 407th Regiment on Bridgehead Guard. Rumors of revolution in Russia and Stalin's flight. 52,000 soldiers reported surrendered the previous day after their commissar was executed. July 10. Heaviest fighting so far. On July 8, alerted at Klobovki and moved across the primary Soviet border at Bolshoi Ladalevo. Night combat against the Russian attack over mined lowlands. On July 9, the company took defensive positions. Hardest day of military service. At 10:30 a.m., moved into a primeval forest after a reconnaissance squad failed to return. Firefight from 10:45 a.m. against skillfully defending Russians. Advanced roughly 1,200 meters of the ordered 2 kilometers. Captured 8 anti-tank guns and 5 trucks. Company alone and surrounded, artillery and heavy mortar fire. First losses, 24 wounded. 6th Company relieved the position. Then both companies stuck again. 10th Company under Eric Belty arrived. 3 rifle companies against roughly 1,000 Russians positioned in trees and earth shelters. Direct fire from anti-aircraft guns, anti-tank guns, and 10.5 cm guns. Attack with hurrah and bugle signal seized the positions. Counterattack followed. 38 wounded prevented withdrawal. Russians eventually fled. Alone overnight. Losses: 1 non-commissioned officer and 9 soldiers killed, 6 non-commissioned officers and 34 soldiers wounded, 1 officer, 1 non-commissioned officer, and 11 soldiers among the wounded. 4 small shrapnel fragments in the back of the neck. Orderly Flott shot in the chest and died of throat bleeding. Counted 200 Russian corpses on the section. Submissions for Iron Crosses and letters to families of the dead required. July 11. Rest day at Concanda. Writing award submissions and after-action reports since 5:30 a.m. July 12. Moving slightly right of the general offensive route. 2nd Battalion under regimental command for special orders. Other battalions attacking successfully since 4 a.m. Night march through Ushuaia, destroyed by dive bomber attacks. Meeting of commanders at 7th Company. Hard rain, July 14. Uneventful Sunday. Followed a regiment that broke through a lake bottleneck and crushed a Red Battalion. General regimental lineup. Moved toward Sebej. Tent camp at Kimona on the lake shore. Paperwork finished. Letters to families of the wounded. Set out at 11:40 p.m. Interviewed by propaganda company announcer about the July 9 battle for the radio program Stimme der Front. About 36 kilometers covered since the previous evening. Tropical heat and dust. Wound reopened but healing normally. Forced marches to complete the large encirclement. Conditions in the area described as indescribable wretchedness. July 15. Reached Krestonovia and set southern and southeastern guard. Berg, who had gone AWOL before the Daugava crossing, reported and was placed under arrest. Trial the same morning. 10 years hard labor, declared unfit for service, civil rights suspended 5 years. Youth and voluntary return cited as mitigating factors. Caught up with the battalion by automobile. Bridge crushed by a heavy anti-aircraft gun. July 16. Reached assigned section at 0:30 a.m. after numerous halts, entrenched and slept. Tropical heat, day and night. Ordered forward at 5 a.m., 2nd Battalion right front, 1st Battalion left, company in the direction of the main strike. 12th and 48th Artillery Regiments, with 21 cm mortars, supported the advance. Russians emerged from shelters and fled under the attack. Many had not eaten for 5 days, yet defended desperately. Birthday, company suffered no losses. Report noted the successful mission, prisoners, trophies, Russian dead, and 0 own losses, with a remark that it was the writer's birthday. Congratulated by the regimental commander and others. July 17. Encirclement closed. Individual entrenchments. Cold and rain beginning. July 18. Second day of defense in the necking between the lakes near Sukoklino. Artillery fire both ways. Cold, foggy, damp Russian attack beaten back with heavy losses. Buried in the ground, ready, jump into hideouts under artillery. Oberfeldwebel Jorison awarded Iron Cross First Class. July 20. 5th Sunday of the war. Artillery fire all the previous day. Offensive by 2nd and 3rd Battalions, scheduled for 6:00 p.m., actually launched at 8:00 p.m. Company charged from the front, 7th Company from the right, 3rd Battalion from the left. Caught the full artillery concentration. Dusk ended the attack. Gas shells identified by distinctive crackle without shrapnel and chlorine odor. Gas masks ordered and signal rocket fired. Wind cleared the cloud in a quarter hour. Hands burned and itched until morning. Night in an anti-tank gap. Cold. Offensive resumed at 3:50 a.m., 6th Company ahead, 5th behind. Drove the Russians from the bushes, crossed a burning bridge they had set alight, and reached the far bank. 8 tanks appeared. They lacked the resolve to continue and withdrew when an anti-tank gun was manhandled across the bridge and opened fire. Shelling from artillery, heavy mortars, and tank guns, entrenched in the bushes. At 11:30 a.m., ordered onto the defensive against a breakout attempt from the south. 5 wounded, 1 killed in the recent days. Resistance visibly strengthening. Major Haberhauer awarded Iron Cross First Class. July 21. Additional life insurance of 5,000 Reichsmarks taken out. Reconnaissance group sent. Quiet night. Blankets issued. Sudden rain in pre-dawn, moved under tarpaulin. Washed, changed pants, shaved 5-day stubble. At 3 p.m. relieved by 3rd Company, 459th Regiment, and ordered northeast. July 22. Short march to Osnitz. Night in isolated trenches under red battery fire. Enemy bomber hit. Night firing on air targets forbidden because of Luftwaffe operations. Radio reported large air attack on Moscow. Marched at 3:50 a.m. to join the division main force. Crossed the Riga-Moscow Railroad at Maevo Station before noon. Lunch by a silted lake. Awful roads. News of Voroshilov's dismissal as commander-in-chief. Country and people regarded with antipathy. The necessity of solving the problem clear to every soldier. Landscape, enemy methods, and fighting make the war unsightly. July 23. Hurried assembly after radioman error, battalion 1 hour late. 18 kilometers to Nasva, along a comparatively good road. Break at Drozdovo. Extreme heat, heavy afternoon rain. Propaganda correspondent promised a chronicle in the BN, night peaceful, but sleep poor. Another 15 kilometers to woods near Saklika. July 24. Advanced only 4 kilometers on Tuesday, then defensive position until 5 p.m. strong guard, night intense. Idle under relentless sun. Soviet bombers at extreme height. Anti-aircraft fire ineffective. Entire corps moving on one road through the swamps toward home. 12th Infantry Division at the tail, regiment at the very tail. Covering southeastern and eastern flanks. Strengthened night guards. Village of Koyani, silted lake. Sorting belongings of the dead and wounded since the previous evening. July 25. Ordered to stay overnight instead of evening departure. Bottle of old Burgundy with the battalion commander. Eastern edge of Circa, expected to remain until noon the next day. July 27. Ready at 6 p.m. Refreshing thunderstorm the previous day, then heat again. Night rest interrupted 3 times by firing. 15 deserters came over, interrogated with Baltic-born interpreter. Stifling heat, 2 thunderstorms, then heat again. Sleep only intense. Letters and food the high points. Railroad to Apachka already functional. Expected advance 10-15 kilometers. July 28. Expected march at 11 p.m., about 40 kilometers. Previous march 12 kilometers in dust and darkness. Company last in column. Tents up by 1 a.m., slept until 8:30 a.m., then letters to families of the wounded. Reading and sleeping until 2:00 p.m. Motorized column raising thick dust over the tents more than 200 meters from the road. July 29. Heavy workload. Left at 11 p.m. after meeting. Break of only a couple of hours at morning rest. Cold night, fog, dust, 38-40 kilometers along the route of the 32nd Infantry Division. Crosses have fallen on both sides of the single road through the swamps. 800 Russians killed and 250 captured on that stretch. Corpse stench continuous. July 30. Afternoon break interrupted at 6 p.m. Another 15 kilometers to Lagote. Crossed the Lovat at Troitsa by 7 p.m. Tents and outposts by 10:30 p.m. Company asleep by 11:00. Cold nights, extreme daytime heat and dust. Thorough wash in the Lovat. Powerful anti-tank obstacles and long-term firing positions prepared by the Bolsheviks but not occupied. Expectation of strong defenses on the Valdai Hills. Frontal assault not intended. Positioned in the eastern part of Circa. Reading the paper, Reich. August 1. Left Circa at 4 a.m., 12 kilometers to Dubrovo on the Kanishevka. Tents on the riverbank. Fahnenjunker von Tippelskirch leaving for Rostock. 3 low-level attacks by I-16 fighters, no casualties. Company missing 1 officer, 9 non-commissioned officers, and 53 soldiers. Combat strength, 2 officers, 16 non-commissioned officers, 82 soldiers. 1st Battalion replaced the 48th Regiment's combat guard. Russian hurrah attacks repulsed 3 times, heavy shelling continuing. Home taken the previous day. Hope of ending the 60-kilometer flank cover mission. 2nd Battalion under heavy artillery for 2 days. Losses in men and horses. Russians crossed the river and hit the 1st Battalion flank. Company moved left of the river to counter. Lieutenant Schubert sent forward with 2 heavy machine guns and 1 heavy mortar. Night quiet, reconnaissance found the enemy pulled back about 2 kilometers. August 6. Notes last made August 3. Quiet Monday. Reconnaissance confirmed flight. Artillery broke up an approaching column. Evening discussion at battalion command post of peacetime feasts. Uneasy feeling before sleep. Green rockets at 1:45 a.m. signaling attack. Heavy shelling. Moved with the company and gathered soldiers from Schubert's platoon, 7th Company Guard, and part of 6th Company into a rear position. Schubert almost surrounded by 2 companies and withdrew. Ordered to retake the lost position with 1 understrength company without heavy weapons, composed of men from 4 companies. Attack began 9:30 a.m., position retaken by 2:30 p.m. Enemy completely destroyed. Feldwebel Strasse and Wegmann killed, Oberfeldwebel Jorissen badly wounded. 140 Russians killed, another 30 burned in huts. Thick fog. Flank cover without communications to main forces. August 8. Quiet Wednesday evening. Ordered to prepare withdrawal upon code signal while still guarding the regiment's march through Pogost-Volok. 7th Company attacked and beat the attack back, then pursued. Stressful night with possible outflanking. Code signal at 0:55 a.m. Orderly break contact. Heavy weapons first. Last to leave with 3 soldiers. Past the graves of Strasse and Wegmann, embellished by comrades. Short prayer. Front moved back 5-7 kilometers. Flanks still exposed, communication between divisions only by reconnaissance sentries. Hourly relief with the company command section in total darkness. Regimental commanders' officers meeting. Immediate artillery fire from 2 batteries. Heavy thunderstorms and continuous rain. Draft letters to family written between rains. Sitting in anti-tank hole with orderly under tent coat. August 10. Villages passed. Dubrovo, Medvedovka, Kumovskaya, Pogost-Volok. Now at Myashlevo. Heavy rainstorm forced sleep in tent. Artillery bombardment at 7:30 a.m. Red Battery quickly located and destroyed. Russians withdrawn regular forces and replaced them with armed civilians. Active reconnaissance required. News that Staraya Russa taken. Resistance continuing near Velikie Luki. Difficult for an offensive army to reorganize for defense. Shelter upgraded with wooden walls and thick hay. Russians opened fire from 7.5 cm guns on artillery positions. 8th week of the war. Preference for advance over static defense. Night guard under cold starlight. August 12. Continuous heavy rain the previous day. Supply truck reported axle deep potholes. Russian bombardment all day. Night attack on outposts beaten back. Important papers, marked maps, and attack order taken from a killed commissar. Quiet previous night. 2 circuits of the front line with orderly. Greatest danger at moonrise and morning fog. No rain. Russians charged the 3rd Battalion and were repulsed, then pressed the outpost. Outpost withdrew to main line without authorization despite known concentrations. Order given to retake the ground. Lieutenant Bach and Lieutenant Schubert already ordered forward. 7th Company to recapture. August 13. 7th Company retook the position overnight. Conduct of Lieutenant Bach and Engler to be examined. Blow to the prestige of the 7th Company. Major Haberhauer's concern understood. He is described as a man of righteousness. Feeling of impending action unfulfilled. Morning raid on 3rd Battalion positions and reconnaissance against the company. Prisoner statements. Officers and commissars largely eliminated. Soldiers poorly fed, poorly trained recruits. Waning moon rising later. Total darkness preferred by the Russians for sorties. Night circuits of the front with orderly. August 16. Another Russian attack attempt. 7.5 cm shell exploded about 8 meters from an observer's trench 2 days earlier. Continuous night movement along the front line with orderly carrying hand grenades. Only short naps possible. Daytime sleep limited to brief rests. Over 14 days on defense. Expectation of another large encirclement requiring the section to hold while flanks attack. Bet that the war would end by August 14 already lost. New bets set for September 14. Positions improving daily. Proper trench system visible. Barbers summoned for haircuts. August 17. 9th week. Russian artillery from 3:10 a.m. Continuing at 8 p.m. ammunition apparently replenished. Rumor of breakthrough between 32nd and 123rd Infantry Divisions. Preference for advance over continued defense. Lieutenant Colonel Kegler inspected positions equipped with connecting passages and expressed commendation. Colonel General Hepner's letter accusing the regiment of leaving fallen men poorly buried near Bolshoi-Ladalevo answered in detail by the commander. Terrible heat, approaching thunderstorm. Replies written to families of the dead. Continuous reconnaissance of the exposed flank. August 19. Stifling heat. Thunderstorm in the afternoon. Evening visit to battalion headquarters. Confirmation of the breakthrough south of Staraya Russa by 5 divisions. General Lieb stopped it with 3 hastily formed regiments and is expected to receive the Knight's Cross. 1st Battalion with 2 companies to charge at 3:00 p.m. Expected to remain another 8 days. Endless rounds of the front line, uniform pants repeatedly patched. New pants expected to consist entirely of patches if the war lasts long enough. August 20. Calm night. 1st Battalion sortie met strong resistance and fell back by evening. Russians prepared for defense. Morning visit by the regiment commander, who handed over the honorable list of the German land forces, mentioning the writer's name. List prepared for immediate dispatch home. Forces reported 40 kilometers from Leningrad. Attack at Velikia Luki scheduled for August 21. Expectation of movement within days. Cloudy, windless. Soldiers punished for misconduct on guard duty. Sometimes with the most serious measures available. Irresponsibility noted. Cases that would otherwise go to tribunal but for prior bravery. August 23. Visit to the Division Court Martial Chairman. 50-kilometer ride in an open, high cross-country automobile. Night inspection of guard posts, fragmented sleep. Frequent correction of subordinates for lack of vigilance and other duty failures. Young officers and non-commissioned officers, reckless but capable. Troops moved south and west of Velikie Luki, tanks cutting retreat routes. Expectation that the enemy will be driven toward the section. 32,000 discs shaped, and mortar mines laid. Replenishment of 1 non-commissioned officer and 11 soldiers, youngest 17. Gentle handling required until they learn the features of the campaign, Russian methods, landscape, and military routine. August 24. After interrogation and report, 2 soldiers submitted to tribunal for serious guard duty misconduct. Same offense repeated despite exhortations. Life of the company depends on such individuals. Instances of entire units slaughtered because of sleeping sentries recalled. August 25. Reports on guard violations written as Sunday occupation. 2 sentries left post unauthorized, went 25 meters back, and fell asleep. No further leniency. Court-martial required. Heavy afternoon rain. Meeting at 7th Company headquarters. At noon, the 7th Company, with attached attack groups from 1st and 3rd Battalions, conducted a short sortie. Part of the company moved from the 7th Company positions. Task accomplished. Defenders fought to the last and had to be dragged from under floorboards. Attack groups withdrew at dusk. Short, heavy downpours throughout the day. August 28. Quiet Tuesday. Young recruits trained in hand grenade throwing. Evening at battalion headquarters. Wednesday court-martial of the 2 soldiers, one sentenced to 5 years hard labor, declared unfit, demoted, the other to 1.5 years. Cinema show at the division despite heavy rain. Return drive impossible because of mud, overnight with 14th Company rear. Crossed 2 fords at dawn. Hope of not remaining long. At Velike Luki, the Russians reported to have lost 40,000 killed and 30,000 captured. August 29. Meeting with the commander. Offensive scheduled for the next day, positions to be left. Cold, rainy weather. Cold and diarrhea after automobile travel. August 31. Attack on Pogus Volok postponed from August 30 to 31. Reconnaissance reported Russians pulled out southeast. Immediate pursuit. Graves of fallen men at Pogost Volok found desecrated. Reached Runovo and set combat guard for the night. September 1. March since morning, guarding against attack from Krasnopoliets. 7th and 5th Companies moved into the Russian rear, easing the task of the 89th Infantry Regiment. Encirclement successful. Joined the 89th and set guard. Basement of a former manor house, now only foundation ruins and desolated garden. Heavy rain, soaked to the skin, straw found, wooden box mines undetectable by detectors, none exploded under the company. September 3. Continuous downpour the previous day and night. Only 8 kilometers covered. Knee-deep mud, tents and overcoats soaked through. Northeast wind after the rain, roads drying but mud becoming glue-like. Kitchen supplied from local resources, soldiers peeling potatoes, cabbage, and carrots. Artillerymen harnessing up to 10 horses per gun. Hope for clearer weather and faster advance with fighting to the Valdai Hills. September 4. Set off at 9 a.m. Rain all night, roads bad again. Night spent warm on hay. September 6. About 15 kilometers the previous day. Acceptable morning weather, rain at midday. Moving left of the 89th Infantry Regiment, 48th on the left, center of the division. Night in another village, warm and dry. Intensive Russian artillery around the shelter until 11 p.m. march at 7 a.m. on Terrible Road. Short rest. Goal the St. Petersburg-Moscow Railroad beyond Valdai. September 7. 13th Sunday of the war. Autumnal cool, occasional rain with hail, sunshine, 18 kilometers with weapons and equipment. Pursuing the Russians closely. Village of Lioknovo, Russians driven out 2 hours earlier and abandoned well-equipped positions. Source of the Volga about 10 kilometers east. Vigorous aircraft activity both sides, heavy fighters permanently overhead. Convoys late, horses lost on the roads, but contact maintained. Overnight at Bolshoi Bohat after the 1st Battalion cleared it. Strong combat guard. Wagons arrived 2 a.m. march from 7:15 a.m. Field kitchen arrived at 7 p.m., only carrots eaten until then. September 8, set out at 1 p.m., under bright sun on a finely dry road. 12 kilometers in 2.5 hours. Wagons arrived 4 a.m. The previous night. Nights noticeably cold. Village of Luga. Valdai Hills picturesque. 2nd Platoon ordered to guard the regiment. March on foot after sending the stableman and another rider for mail held 6 days. On the road since 9 a.m., 4 p.m. Now, September 10. Battalion ordered to remain in place. Unexpected rest day. Cleaned thoroughly ablution with a bucket. Afternoon horseback reconnaissance 10 kilometers west, returned 8 p.m. 5 Red Divisions surrounded east of home. 1st Battalion already marched. Full combat readiness maintained. Tanks broken through toward Valdai. September 11. March order at 12:30 p.m. Defense and guard at Polonovshchina since 6 p.m. the previous day. Company units rotating into huts. First frosts the previous night. Bright sun. Anti-aircraft gunners shot down 3 Soviet bombers in sight. September 14. March order at 1:30 p.m. For 2:00 p.m. departure, first wash in 3 days, first shave in 6. Night of September 12 ordered into action. Liaison officer at 1:30 a.m., no further sleep. Organized and marched at 4 a.m. From Polonovshchina to Dubrovki, initial position of the regiment. Mission to sweep the river valley. 1st Battalion on both banks, 2nd Battalion echeloned left protecting the flank. Intensive artillery to break the cauldron. At Domatovo Borak, the company engaged with heavy and light machine gun platoons and a 15 cm battery. Rain all day, soaked. Captives reported hundreds of trucks and guns in the woods. Advanced 1,800 meters into the woods. Reconnaissance reported 3 defense lines with tanks and 3 batteries. Artillery duel from 2:00 p.m. to 11:00 p.m., 8 15 cm guns, 4 7.5 cm guns, and 3 tanks against anti-tank gun, mortars and machine guns at 400 meters. 1 tank destroyed and battery silenced. Russians pulled out by morning. Trophies counted by a Latvian forcibly drafted into the Red Army who accompanied the strike group, 487 trucks, 20 armored vehicles, 6 armored reconnaissance vehicles, 6 armored automobiles, 35 field kitchens, 15 8.8 cm anti-aircraft guns, 23 15 cm guns, 3 long 15 cm guns, 7 5 cm guns, 2 12.62 cm guns, 2 mobile radios, 8 anti-tank guns, 25 automobiles, 18 motorcycles, and uncounted light and heavy weapons. Promoted to Oberleutnant effective September 1. Last 2 bottles of French cognac emptied in an anti-tank hole. Night telephone order for readiness at 4 a.m. and 25-kilometer march to break another encirclement. Now at Nikolaevskoye with 2 attack groups, other groups closing from north, northwest, and east. Woods believed to hide high-ranking officers. Cloudy with occasional sun. September 15. Sunday hunting without success. Russians met by other units to the northeast. Evening with platoon officers and a bottle of KML. Hard night rain, weather improved. Trophy gramophone records including Beethoven's 5th Symphony, performed by the Usser State Orchestra. Letter of congratulations on the first star from Major Engel at the Freres headquarters. September 16. Advance toward Demansk continuing. Wounded Russians emerged from the woods, some carried by local civilians, bandages unchanged for days. 12 soldiers awarded Iron Crosses. Company totals, 2 Iron Crosses First Class, 33 Iron Crosses Second Class, 74 Infantry Assault Badges. September 18. At Belyevshchino, SS Division Headquarters. Ordered to report with Chief of Staff Gluske, regimental commander also expected. Probable relief of SS positions. Past Demyansk and its large prisoner camp, rode an armored tractor the rest of the way. Previous days on the so-called highway under continuous downpour, advances of 5 or 15 kilometers between multi-hour stops. Entire road jammed with motorized and infantry divisions. Forced halt behind Demyansk the previous night because the bridge was unfinished. Deep ford required. Replenished with 24 men. Whispered expectation of defense while main operations moved toward Moscow. Artillery, cannonade audible. September 19. Instructed by 1st SS Infantry Regiment on the section, taken that day. Continuous rain. Returned from SS headquarters on foot, then on cavalry platoon horses. Reached Danilovo by 8 p.m. night order for the current section. Set off at 6:30 a.m. under first snow and rain. Thorough inspection of the 2,300-meter front line and instruction of platoon commanders. Left flank in order, right flank through woods. Continuous Curtis fighter raids. Sitting in battalion headquarters at Kilkovo, stone houses and painted floors, but insects everywhere. February 13th, 1942, at Demyansk Division Command Post. After long consideration, reported to the commander and requested leave. Papers already prepared. Night at the division, then to the wagons at Ilyina Gora, then back. Departure delayed pending the division commander's authorization. Colonel Kegler himself ordered on leave against his written protest Major Stupi from the 32nd Infantry Division to replace him. Brockdorff forbade the leave. Ordered instead to a training course in Berlin, attendance described as certain, though the date remained open. February 14. Penkovo. Clear winter day. Ordered to report to the regiment rather than remain idle. Waiting for summons to the course of educational films in Berlin. Company in order. February 22. Headquarters of the Land Forces Command, Lietzen, sequence of events from the front, telegram of 15 February ordering immediate departure to the disposal of the Inspector General of Infantry. Boarded a Ju-52 at the airfield on 16 February with orderly Venner and 4 seriously wounded. Came under fire near the highway to calm and returned it. Landed Skroff, overnight poor. Courier Mercedes to Riga next morning. Telegram to Captain Meissner. Bath and dinner in the officers' casino. Evening performance of Don Quixote by the Riga Ballet. Courier bus to headquarters. Lunch in Tilsit. Arrival Lietzen about 8:30 p.m. Reported to Captain Meissner and described the front situation. Next morning, reported to Colonel Matthias, ordered to write experience of forest fighting, then proceed to Berlin to assist the text for the educational film Combat in the Forest. Dinner with staff officers of the inspectorate. Visit to Major Engel at the Frere's headquarters. Coffee, dinner, introduction to the Frere. Night binoculars presented by Engel. Further visits to operations, organizational, and training directorates. Overall impression of exhausted but capable staff officers who listened carefully to a frontline company commander. April 28, 1942, Chinon, France. Continuous rain preventing outdoor filming. 2-month gap in the diary closed by reconstructing the interval. One day in Breslau with mother and sisters, Brother Ginter present after a thigh wound near Kaluga and a later appendectomy. Reported to the Educational Films Directorate in Berlin, accommodation arranged through Frau Dr. Paul, group moved to Grunwald after a fire. Work initially undefined, tasks supplied by Hans Paul. Antipathy to the civilian atmosphere in Berlin. Visit to Rostock. Meeting with convalescent officers of the 27th Infantry Regiment, including amputees. British bombing of Rostock. Mission extended first to 30 April, then indefinitely despite objections. Filming staff moved to Chinon on the Vienne. Physical rest but constant concern for the company, now reduced to about 20 men, Lieutenant Neumann lost an eye. Fuchs and Pakowitz dead. Colleagues competent. Major Forster, Fritz Dittmann, and others. Visit with Colonel Kegler to Chartres Cathedral Concert and Le Mans. July 29-30th, 1942, returned to the regiment after intervention by Major Engel and Lieutenant Colonel Klosterkemper. Fast train from St. Pierre de Corps via Paris to Berlin, then courier aircraft to the Frere headquarters, and onward to Schkoff and Ostrov in a formation of 32 Ju-52s escorted by fighters. Landed and proceeded by trophy truck. Reported to the regiment commander, drank with him, then walked in pouring rain to Scharf's battalion at Osseide. Took command of the 2nd and 5th companies. Company strength rebuilt to 106, including the heavy machine gun crew, by arrivals of convalescents and replacements. Positions previously held by artillerymen and drivers required complete reorganization of mine spacing, observation, and discipline. Birthday on 16 July coincided with the company number 27. On 18 July, the company left its positions and marched 5 kilometers singing. First time the remaining men had been together for months. Night without gunfire or guard duty. Systematic work on morale and preparation for eventual offensive. August 6-28, 1942. Positions at Lunyovo on the Dimtsevka. Daytime quiet. Night shelling and attempted raids. 1 man killed. Visit to Captain Lem to celebrate his promotion. Battalion Commander Captain von Hassel lacking infantry experience. Defector provided detailed description of the Russian line. Daily hour of instruction for non-commissioned officers. Changes to dugouts 13A, 13, and 12 inspected by the Battalion Chief of Staff. Continuous night circuits of the 3.35-kilometer section. Russian Penal Regiment of the 166th Rifle Division opposite. Casualties on 21 August, 6 in 24 hours. Concentrated fire from all available weapons silenced the most active sector. Convalescents arriving. Training of junior leaders shifting from pure weapon skill to morale. Fortification program for winter, dugouts, trenches, camouflage, sauna, roads, rear services 400 meters back. Regimental commander Colonel Stupi inspected for more than 5 hours and expressed satisfaction. Night attacks beaten back under bright moonlight. Light infantry gun used against survivors in the minefield. Further attacks at Osseide left 60 Russian dead. September-November 1942. Sorties into Russian positions sometimes aborted by own predecessor mines. Cinema, potato baking, promotions Reed, then immediate death of Gefreiter Wanke to a sniper. Mirrors installed so sentries need not expose themselves. Defector reports of Ural communists opposite. Obergefreiter Stee hit in the head and later died. Continuous attrition from wounds and illness while every sentry post must still be manned. Propaganda company filmed a sports festival and positions. Anti-tank gun, infantry gun, artillery, and heavy mortars destroyed a Russian pillbox. First snow melted at once. Night frosts. Visit to Ikondovo sauna. Letters irregular after the land corridor was closed. On 23-24 September, an officer and others disappeared or fled during a raid. Pursuit with automatic rifle, pistol, and grenades recovered a mortally wounded Russian officer and confirmed 4 dead. Later reports from defectors stated that the captured man killed 1 sentry and wounded another and revealed nothing. Work on the new 3. 7-kilometer section near the Demiansk-Movatitsi highway. Predecessors had done nothing all summer. 3 weeks of continuous labor with shovels produced usable positions, camouflage walls of spruce, a new dugout bar, and a sauna. Reconnaissance group eliminated a forward observer and blew up a firing position. Successful attack group sortie, with no own casualties. On 29 October, ordered to take temporary command of the 1st Battalion, while Major Scharf replaced the commander of the 422nd Infantry Regiment. Battalions shifted to the right flank of the 123rd Division onto a frozen swamp, prepared for an expected major Russian breakthrough. Construction of defensive works competing with Russian offensive preparations. Weather alternating snow, freeze, and thaw. Lieutenant Fiddlemeyer, sent as replacement, killed a few days later. Lieutenant Nelius took the company. Reports of heavy fighting in Africa and in the south, and a Russian offensive at Kalinin and Toropets on 25 November. The diary ends with the observation that the work continues, and that the unit will cope. This reconstruction for the Iron Dominion preserves the factual sequence. The recorded losses, the awards, the marches, the weather, the supply difficulties, and the writer's contemporaneous judgments, without added commentary. Further installments of the same source appear in the channel's pinned material.